Good morning, my magnificent ones. Sue Paulson here, your magnificence mentor. Welcome to Tea with Sue. When I was growing up, I heard more than once the phrase, patience is a virtue. Now, I didn't exactly know what patience was. All that I knew was that I had to wait, and especially wait for things that I really wanted right now. So there'd be cookies baking in the oven, and I'd be hopping from one foot to the other. Are they ready yet? Are they ready yet? No, be patient. And that ran in my head over and over. Well, then, of course, the cookies would come out of the oven, and I'm all excited again. Can I have one? Can I have one? Can I have one? No, they're too hot. You'll burn your fingers. You'll burn your mouth. You have to wait. Be patient. Boy, you're so impatient. And I'm, all right. So I'd be trying to stop myself from just bouncing up and down and or tapping my fingers on the table, waiting, and then finally the cookies were ready to eat. Well, over time, I did learn a little more patience here and there. And I thought, well, what's wrong with wanting what we want and having it right now? There's nothing inherently wrong with that. It's just that instant gratification isn't always that instant, even though we want it. So think about fast food, for example. So we want the convenience because the food is right there for us. So we line up at the drive-through because everybody else has the same idea, right? They want fast food too. They don't want to have to cook. They just want to, or they're really hungry and they don't want to have to wait. But of course, these days, with our supply chains being disrupted and challenges with staffing, fast food is not that fast anymore. You go to the drive-through and you wait and wait. So this happened to me last week. I took my aunt to get an ice cream cone, and at the drive-through, they said, "Oh, could you wait a minute, please?" So they didn't even get my order yet. And all I wanted was an ice cream cone, which is, easy and should be really fast. But it took 3 or 4 minutes before the person came back on the speaker and said, "Oh, what can I get you? Sorry for the delay." And of course, there would be some people would be so angry and so frustrated that they would just, never mind, I don't want anything, and then have to wait to get out of the line because of course it's just one way in and one way out and only one car at a time. So which could then set up a whole scenario of snapping at the family because nothing happened the way it was supposed to happen. And then maybe there's a little road rage to get out of the area and go someplace else. Oh my goodness. So there's something to be said for patience. But what is patience? Well, what it's not is it's not just gritting your teeth and waiting or being upset that you're not getting what you want right now. That's impatience. So patience is different than that, though. Patience has a lot to do, I find, with divine timing. And if you focus on the idea that, well, this is what I want, and when it comes to me, it comes in its own timing. That's the best thing to happen at that moment. If I push it, if I force it, if I get impatient because it's not materializing, then that's not helping the situation whatsoever. And maybe I'll make a choice that's less than what I want because I'm too impatient, because I'm not willing to wait. So this is a hard lesson to learn. And believe me, I'm still learning it. I found myself this last short while being more impatient than I usually have. People often say to me, "Oh, Sue, you're so patient. I wouldn't be that patient." I find I'm very patient with other people. If they're in a learning mode, I have endless amounts of patience because I know what a struggle it can be and I know how hard it is. But I find that I'm not as patient with me and what I want for me. If it's a learning curve, I can be somewhat patient with that and then begin to enjoy it. So as an example, you see the little picture of the giraffe behind me. I painted that. So every week I get together with a couple of friends from Mazatlan in Mexico, and via WhatsApp and the beauty of technology, we pick something that we want to paint. We find a photograph or someone else's drawing, and then we paint our own rendition of that. Well, I never felt that I had extreme skills when it came to drawing or painting or whatever, but I love playing with color. And so I decided so we started doing this, and it's lots of fun. And so, but what I found was that I would get impatient because there were so many details, and I wasn't finished yet, and I wasn't finished yet, and I wasn't finished yet. Well, I like to have a project that I can come to completion reasonably quickly. So if somebody said, well, I want you to sew something, well, it would be easier for me to sew a small something because I can see the result fairly quickly, as opposed to a big something that has lots of steps and is complicated and is going to take more time. Because there was always a chance that I would lose interest partway through and then I wouldn't finish it. So it requires some patience with myself that, okay, I'm in learning mode, and bit by bit, I'll figure it out. Or I can take another little course or watch another video that will show me an easier way or a better way to do it. But it's not all about speed. And when you go back in history and look at the old masters who painted these incredible portraits and landscapes, it took the time that it took. And if that was months, well, that was months. If it was years, it was years. And so it wasn't about, well, you have to have this in 24 hours or it's not going to work. So we've come into this kind of instant culture these days that I'm not sure is serving us that well. And so I wanted to talk about patience as an important facet of what we do in our lives. So when we can allow, and it doesn't mean you don't get to have what you want. Eventually, we can have it all, just not all at the same time. But we're conditioned in our society to believe that oh yeah, I can have it all, and I can have it all right now. Well, I think that's unrealistic. Absolutely. So let's look at impatience for a second and focus on what the internal feeling of impatience that results. So when we're impatient about something, what is going on internally? Well, it spikes our our levels of anxiety, our levels of worry, our levels of maybe inadequacy, our levels of intolerance for what is instead of what we want it to be. And that's not good for us. That is not a good way to go through life. So, and of course, if we're impatient with someone else, it sets up a really negative vibe in them too. So I know the age-old thing with mothers as they're wanting to train their children to do some things. well, I just get so impatient because I can do it faster myself. Yeah, you can do it faster yourself. And you probably can do it better than your child because you've had years of practice as well. But what are you taking away from the child when you won't allow them the same struggle that you went through to learn that? And if you allow them that in a loving way, not an impatient way, oh, hurry up, we have to go. Come on, come on, come on. Never mind, I'll put your shoes on. Just grab them and I'll put them on for you. You're too slow. I heard that, and I confess, I'm sure I said that to my son many times. Come on, we're late. We've got to go. We've got to go. And wouldn't allow him that process. So what does that set up for him when I'm impatient like that? He gets anxious and maybe upset with himself. I can't do it good, or I'll never be able to do it, or whatever. Well, that seeds the ground for future learning experiences that are less than positive. So we need to stop that. We need to allow people their own experience in that. And I've seen this and experienced this also with couples, and in my own situation when I was married, and there was the, you know, the honey-do list, the things that you want your husband to do, or you want your wife to do, or you know, there's that expectation of, well, that's your job, or I'd like to give this particular task to you, either because I hate doing it or whatever. And and then it doesn't happen the way we expect. So I build up in my head, well, I want this done, and I want it done well, and I want it done now. And when there's no activation on the part of my partner to be as motivated or as activated as I am to have that accomplished, it's frustrating, it's irritating. And then there's a wrangle about it if we don't talk it out. If I don't set it up and say, you know, would you be willing to do this, first of all? And here's some things to do, and would you be willing to do, you know, this, or this? And when would you be willing to do them by? And set that up so that your expectations, you know, I'd really like it done before this happens. Is that possible? And then you negotiate about that. And rather than be all steamy and, you know, smoke coming out of the top of your head, because I told them I wanted them to do that and they didn't do it, and they didn't do it, and they didn't do it. And then there's no conversation about it because oh, I'm afraid to rile them up and maybe they'll never do it. Or you know the scenario, I don't need to explain it to you. I bet you can find at least 10 different events like that in recent history. And you go, what's that all about? You know, what is that doing in terms of how you view the other person, how they view you, and how each of you views yourselves? So the idea of this whole impatience thing, I think it's such a negative scenario. It really does not serve us very well at all, mind, body, and soul, and in terms of our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with others. So what's the flip side of that then? So what is patience? Patience is more a state of being. So you have your goals or your idea of things that you want, and you're willing, once you've expressed your intention to have a certain thing or set up conditions the way that you would like, then you allow things to happen as they will in what I've mentioned previously is divine timing. that, because let's face it, first of all, the universe has your back. All right. God and the universe are for you and want things for your highest good. And so, but you can't see everything from where you are. You know, we're here with this focus that might be slightly wide, but mostly is narrow. And the universe sees 360 degrees and high enough that it can see, well, if we do this now, there's a problem over here and there's a problem over there. But if we wait, then this will clear up, that will clear up. It's like the traffic report, right? You want to know ahead of time if this route is going to be easier or this route is going to be easier. And when you hear, no, there's a roadblock on 53rd Avenue, and that's where you wanted to go, are you going to say, well, I'm going there anyway. I don't care if there's a blockage. I don't care if I have to wait in traffic. Well, fine, fill your boots. But if you say, yeah, I don't want to spend that time in traffic, so I'll go an alternate route. That's why they suggest alternate routes. Well, the universe does the same thing, only it doesn't communicate in quite the same way. So you have to have some faith that if you're pushing and pushing and pushing against something and you know, dancing around wanting to make things happen, and it's not working, things aren't fitting together, things aren't meshing, it's a clear signal that there's something else going on that you're not aware of. There's something that needs to happen first. So backing off is a great strategy. So the other day I was having trouble with my printer. I was wanting to print off this document and the paper kept jamming and then it said there was no driver connected, and I'm all frustrated because I'd set up the printer and it was supposed to be working, but it wasn't. Did I want to take my precious time to troubleshoot? No, not really, but I didn't really want to. And I confess, there was a moment there when I just wanted to take a hammer and just smash the top of that printer because it wasn't working. Well, that would have been quite unproductive. And I held myself back. I had to rein myself in. Now, Sue, relax. You'll get this figured out or you won't. And so just, you know, take a deep breath. And I turn my attention to something else to give myself some space and time to decide when I wanted to go back to that. And then when I did go into the troubleshooting mode, it said something about, well, there's no driver connected. And oh, okay. So then I followed the path of doing what needed to be done. And voila, I got my printer working. And I was so relieved. And I realized that there was a moment when it wasn't working and I was really frustrated. And then when I let that go, when I walked away from it and said, no, not right now. I'm not sure what to do about it. And so I'm just going to leave it. And then it was as if by magic, the steps to fix it either came, somehow permeated, and I was able to have a success with it. Now, sometimes you can't have a success with it, and it's important to just walk away regardless and say, you know what, that's just not in the cards for me at this point in time. And fair game to do that, because sometimes we push and we push and we push and doing something and it turns out badly. And so why are we still hammering? Well, it should work. It should work. I should be able to do this. I should be able to do this. I should be able to do this. I remember years ago reading a book where, the name of the author escapes me at the moment, but he was talking about, he had always proposed that anybody can do anything as long as they can put their mind to it. They have a positive mindset. And that was his thing for years and years and years. And then he came across a scenario whereby a young man had decided he wanted to follow in his father's footsteps and become a surgeon. So he went through medical school, he did the surgical rotation and so on. And when it came time for him to do his first surgery, he just froze. He couldn't do it. And of course, most of them around that in the surgical wing just thought, oh, well, he doesn't have the stomach for it. He can't do it. Well, because they were curious about why this wasn't happening, and his dad is going, well, I don't understand this, because it wasn't for lack of motivation or diligence in learning or anything like that. So they had this young man go through a series of fairly elaborate testing in a whole variety of ways, and physical testing as well as mental, emotional, and so on. And what they discovered was this young man did not actually have the fine motor skills that were required to do that level of precise surgery. It just literally, he was not made up that way. Well, fair enough. We're not all wired the same. Every one of us is unique, and we bring different things physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So when he discovered that, it was actually quite a relief, because he realized that it wasn't that he wasn't, quotes, failing because of his own psyche or what was important to him. He literally was not going to be able to do what was required at the level that was going to be required. So instead of becoming a surgeon, he turned his attention to a different form of medicine and ended up being hugely successful doing that. So it really spoke to me in a big way that sometimes we put a lot of expectations on ourselves because we're not able to do a certain thing, because we're not physically wired to be able to do that, or our brains aren't configured to do that. I have a friend who can look at a trunk space and know exactly how much will fit in there and whether a certain piece of furniture will fit in there. And I don't have that. And I so admire that she can do that and pack it so that every square inch is well utilized, and you fit twice as much as probably I would have been able to do. Well, my brain doesn't work that way, and I've recognized that. And okay, well, I have some spatial thing that is not working the way it does for other people. Fair enough. So, but I have been impatient with myself because of that lack. And so there's an issue that I need to come to terms with and say, well, I'm not wired that way, so fair enough. How am I going to deal with it from here? Knowing what I know, how will I deal with that? How will I have patience as I learn a different way to do that? So patience is very much a state of being and being in the moment, really. So it's so interesting to me that we come right around the spectrum to discover that from impatience all the way around to patience. And it's about being in the moment. It's about enjoying what you're enjoying right here, right now, regardless of the circumstances. Stuck in traffic, who likes that? Nobody likes that. I don't like that. But what can you do while you're stuck in traffic? Well, you can seethe and fume and continue to get more and more irritated until you're in full blown out rage, or you can look around and notice, oh, that car in front of me is from Minnesota, and oh, there's a Texas license plate over there, and oh, there's one from Alberta. Oh, cool. So you notice different things, or, oh, there's a young person playing kind of cool music in the car next to me, or there's kids making funny faces in the car over here. You start noticing things. Oh, the sky's blue. I can hear the birds chirping. I'm breathing. Oh, this is a moment to relax. I was so frantic up until now. Well, now I can just breathe or safely make a phone call to let whoever you were supposed to be meeting know you're stuck in traffic. So there's lots of things that we can do to just be in the moment and say, well, it'll clear up at some point and I'll get where I'm going eventually. So this week, I want you to focus on patience and ask yourself, am I being impatient? Am I going to the side that I don't want to go to, and it's setting up my whole stress response, and I'm not feeling good? Or am I okay with this? I'm okay with the flow. You know, the tide goes out, the tide comes in. It takes time for the tide to go out and for the tide to come in. It takes time from the germ of an idea for things to materialize. And when we participate in that flow, life gets easier and life is more fun. Honestly, it really is. It's more heaven than it is hell. So impatience, well, feels like hell. But that in the moment, that patience perspective, that's heaven. You know you can do this because you're that magnificent. If you're enjoying Tea with Sue, as always, you can find more videos on my YouTube channel. I invite you to subscribe, and you can always get all my video content and my articles on my app, The Magnificence Mentor, which is a free download. Until next week, enjoy your weekend. Take good care, my friends. Bye for now.